morning, third period. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. All right, so as you know, we are recording today's lecture so that you have a copy of it on YouTube. All right, there's going to be a lot of writing today, but no drawing. As you can see, I've got a pen out, and I've also got two different colored pens. If you've got some different colored writing utensils, now's the time to pull out two of your favorite colors. If you don't have different colored writing utensils, that's okay. We can do it without the different colors. All right, so you guys, title, Conditional Statements and Their Relatives. So you guys already had a chance, hopefully, to watch the video on the Flipped Math website, where we started talking about inductive reasoning, we started talking about proof writing, we started talking about conditional statements. And to remind you guys as you're setting up your papers, conditional statements are those if-then statements. Okay? It's a condition. If something is true, then this other thing is true. All right? And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to take some vocabulary words that we've got from your past notes. So if you've got your notebooks, and I heard a lot of paper wrestling and binders opening and closing, so I know you guys have your binders on your desk. Go into your binder, and we're going to pull some vocabulary words. I'm going to lead you through some examples so that you can use it. Okay, so let's write the conditional statement for, let's start off with an easy one. Let's start off with collinear. What's the definition for collinear? Close, stuff that lies on the same line. And when we talk about stuff, it's points. Fantastic. So the definition says points that lie on the same line. But how would you write that definition as an if something, then something else? How would you write points on the same line?
If points are on the same line, it's collinear.
Beautiful. If points are on the same line,
Then they are collinear.
then they are collinear. So we'll write that as our original conditional. If points are on the same line, then they are collinear. Beautiful. Now here's where the different colored pens come into play. This part right here after the if is the hypothesis. Oh, I'm totally misspelling that word. Sorry, this is supposed to be a Y. Right there. Hypothesis. And the stuff after the then is the conclusion. I'll zoom it in a little bit. There we go. Hope that's a little bit better for the reading.
Can we turn the light off?
Light off? Sure. Volunteer to turn out the lights. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Okay, so the screen's going to go dark momentarily. Yes, please. Man, give just a second while it realizes.
Nighttime.
Hello. There we go. It had to think about it. There we go. Is that a little better to see?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you. All right, so there was collinear. Let's do, for the fun times, let's do one of our theorems, the vertical angle theorem. Can you find that in your notes from 9:18? I think that was Monday. And find the vertical angle theorem and read me the 4-word sentence that is the vertical angle theorem from 9:18. Oh, that was last week, Thursday.
$9.18.
From 9:18, yeah.
It says, I do not have it.
Oh no.
Are we sure? Did we write that?
Yeah, we wrote it. It was under relationship.
There are two non-adjacent angles formed by intersecting lines.
Beautiful. That's the definition of vertical angles. Read for me the vertical angle theorem, which was right below that.
Angles are congruent.
Vertical angles are congruent. Beautiful. How do we write that as an if then statement.
If
If vertical angles are what?
I was like, that's what I was
Doesn't make any
like.
sense.
You're right, so we've got to add some more words.
If angles are congruent, then they're vertical.
Close. If angles are what kind of angles?
Vertical.
Then they are.
Congruent. If angles are vertical, then they're congruent.
If angles are vertical, but see, that sounds weird. Okay? So we're going to classify it. Let's put how many angles do we need?
2.
2. So if 2 angles are vertical angles, then they are congruent. So the vertical angle theorem, as an if-then statement, would read, if 2 angles are vertical angles, then they are congruent. Lovely. Take a moment and underline the hypothesis. If you're using single color, underline it once. If you're using single color, underline the conclusion twice. Take a moment, identify those.
Oh, I got it.
Thumbs up when you got them underlined.
Oh, we were supposed to underline it?
Yes, please underline. Thank you.
Why
Thank
did I
you.
get it wrong? Why did I get it wrong?
Thank you. Underline for the hypothesis. Thank you. It's the stuff after the if, right? But before the comma. Okay. Got it? Awesome. All right. So you guys are masters at this.
Yes.
Yes. All right. I'm going to scoot stuff down just a little bit. All right. So let's go into the relatives. And the first relative that I want to practice is the converse. What was the converse according to that video? Do you remember?
Converse takes the condition and switch the hypothesis and conclusion.
So it takes the original conditional and it switches the hypothesis and the conclusion. So we're going to write it down again just so that we remember, and we're going to shorten that to say swap hypothesis and conclusion. All right, so let's take the collinear conditional and let's write it as the converse. So the original conditional for collinear was if points are the same, then they are collinear. So what would be the converse of that?
If they're collinear points.
If what are collinear? You said if they are collinear. Okay. If what are collinear?
The lines? The angles?
Look at the original hypothesis.
The points are
Points.
collinear.
So if points are collinear, then
They are collinear.
They are.
they're on the same line. So we're taking this original collinear up here, and we're flipping the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if points are collinear, then they are on the same line. Fantastic. Gorgeous. What's the converse of the vertical angle theorem? Look back at the original conditional.
Okay. If vertical angles are congruent, then there are 2 angles.
Close.
If angles are congruent, then they are vertical.
How many angles?
Two. If
Two.
angles are congruent, then they are vertical.
There we go. If 2 angles are congruent, then they are vertical angles. Beautiful converse.
Wait.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if these statements, when we're done writing them, if they make any sense or not. Okay? We're not discussing whether these statements are true at the end or not. Okay? We're just practicing how to write them.
Here's mine.
Right. Fantastic. Let's go on to the next relative, inverse. Don't ask me why that started off as a little h. The world may never know. All right, inverse. From the video, what was inverse? Opposite. Yeah. What was it? What was it?
She said if I knew, I would tell you.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's cool. Okay. I heard voice. I was just checking.
Oh.
It's okay. You can say always. It was nothing. It was nothing. Okay, cool. So he said the opposite. He's exactly right. You're going to negate the hypothesis and the conclusion. What does the word negate mean?
To erase.
To erase, to undo, to stop, to make it the opposite of. So if I said, I like unicorns, negate the statement would make it mean the opposite. I do not like unicorns. I don't know if I hate them or I dislike them or whatever. I just know that I don't like them. Okay?
They're so cute.
So let's find, notice that we're negating both, the hypothesis and the conclusion. So what would be the inverse of collinear?
But now we're doing it back to where it's hypothesis and then.
Correct, you're taking your original conditional.
An inverse of collinear is
If points are
not on the same line.
If points are not on the same
then
line,
they are non-collinear.
then they are, but don't use the word non, because yes, I know that means not, but that's a definition, that's a vocabulary word. So you want to make sure that it's clear you're negating by using that word not. And I'm glad that you did that, thank you. If points do not lie on the same line, and I think I just went off the page, I'm sorry. Then they are not collinear. Thank you. All right, inverse of that, of the vertical angle theorem. Remember, you're going to use the original conditional statement from the very top of the page.
If two angles aren't vertical,
If two angles are not vertical,
Then they are not congruent.
then they are not congruent. Beautiful. If two angles are not vertical angles, then they are not congruent. Beautiful. Lovely. It's today's International Talk Like a Pirate Day, I think.
Talk like a pirate?
Yeah, I heard it
It's
on
a
the
real
news this
thing.
morning. It totally is. Arr, mateys. That definition be lovely. I'm sorry, not definition. That inverse be lovely.
On the scallywag.
All right, here's the last relationship. It's the contrapositive.
I ran out of room.
You ran out of room. Go ahead and go to the back of the page. Put your bar. Don't forget your margin.
Wait.
Yeah, your fat margin. Oh, no, my goodness. All right, so contrapositive from the video, what did it say?
Switch inverse.
Switch and inverse. Oh, switch the inverse is what it says. Okay, switch the inverse. Okay, so it's basically swap and negate. So you're going to take you're either going to take the inverse and swap them, or you're going to take the converse and negate them. Either way gets you to the same place.
wait, say that again?
To get the contrapositive, you either take the inverse and swap the hypothesis and
And
conclusion,
then it goes right back to the original statement.
or you go to the converse and negate the hypothesis and the conclusion. Either way you do it, both ways are right. You're going to get to the same place, okay?
So inverse, you swap,
Or the converse and negate. So I'm going to shortcut it and say swap and negate. Again, referencing back.
because I put swap and negate and then underneath it put inverse, I can swap it and converse. I don't know.
It might. Let me take when this is done, bring your notes up and let's discuss one-on-one.
We got siete
Okay.
minutos.
Oh, siete minutos. Okay, let's do this super fast. All right, so contrapositive of collinear. Contrapositive of collinear. All right, look at collinear. Either the original statement, swap and negate, the converse and negate, or the inverse and swap. Your pick.
I don't need it.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. All right. I'm going to use the inverse because I have it sitting here already. So I'm going to take the inverse and I'm going to swap the hypothesis and the conclusion. So the hypothesis here on this inverse says if they're not collinear, if points are not collinear, then they do not lie on the same line. See how we did that? We took the inverse statement and we swapped the hypothesis and the conclusion.
Points are not collinear, they do not.
All right, let's find the contrapositive of the vertical angle theorem. Since we have the inverse written, it's visible on the screen, let's go ahead and use that one. If, what?
Two angles.
If they are not congruent.
If two angles are not congruent, then they are not vertical. Beautiful. That's it. You guys are masters at this.
Yes, right?
Perfection. Yes. Real quick. That's it. Let me zoom it out just a bit. Here is the task for this particular set of notes. Yes, you may take